Me, and I am trying to record the latest episode of Rachel Maddow Presents Ultra, and I'm not doing all that well at it. Podcasts are very humbling. They are more difficult than you would think, at least they are for me. Fortunately, Kelsey and I had help that day from Orzo, who is a cat. But then, while they were mulling the desperation of their circumstances in Landsberg prison, they got some good news. A new lawyer. But then, while they were mulling the desperation of their circumstances in Landsberg prison, they got some good news. A new lawyer who wanted to try to reopen their case. It's no wonder Orzo, the cat, came over to help. I don't think this was photobombing by Cat. I think this was encouragement by Cat. I think this was get it right, Maddow. Come on, spit it out. You can do it. Spit it out. How many times are you going to restart this sentence? Thanks to Kelsey and the rest of the podcast team, and most definitely Orzo, the producer Cat, episode 3 of Ultra was finally spat out by me. It is available now for free wherever you get your podcast. There's 8 episodes of the podcast altogether. This is 3. It is a banger episode, if I don't say so myself. You can take it from me, or you can take it from producer Cat Orzo, who is a very, very good boy. All right, that does it for us tonight. Now it's time for The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Good evening, Lawrence.
Good evening, Rachel. You know, I just experienced your description of that cat story the same way that all of our listeners on Sirius Radio experienced it, which is to say with no visual whatsoever. It was as if I was driving down the 405 in LA on my way home from work at the studio or something. And it's good, I think, for us to have that Sirius Radio experience every once in a while. But I have to say,
I started off the show with the whole visual thing too, showing this weird guy with vampire teeth and fake fire and people breaking windows with their heads. And so if you've been stuck with me for the hour, there's been a lot of visual description of things you can't see that were very important.
But you know, usually I find the Sirius Radio version is more than enough for almost everything that we do here. But I do think there's a bunch of people in America right now who are driving home with Sirius on, and as soon as they get home, they're going to get that TV on or somehow find the video of Rachel and the cat.
If you, my handle on Threads is Maddow. It's just my last name twice, and I have posted that clip of Orzo on Threads. It's reason enough to join Threads if you haven't already, particularly if you're still a refugee from Twitter, like so many of us are. You can meet Orzo there. I will enjoy meeting you.
All right, and Rachel, I'll see you Thursday night. We're going to watch TV together.
Yeah. Oh, we'll listen too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Okay. Thanks, Rachel.
Bye.
I don't appreciate your tone. That's what Donald Trump's favorite judge, Aileen Mercedes Cannon, who Donald Trump appointed, said today to one of the prosecutors on Special Prosecutor Jack Smith's team in the case of United States of America versus Donald J. Trump, in which Donald Trump is criminally charged with violations of the Espionage Act and illegal possession of classified documents. I don't appreciate your tone. We'll hear more about that tone from Adam Klasfeld, who was in the courtroom in Florida today, and we'll get Andrew Weissman and Joyce Vance's perspective on that tone as former federal prosecutors themselves. I don't appreciate your tone. It was, in its way, the courtroom equivalent of, nevertheless, she persisted.
It has been a long uphill struggle to keep alive the vital legislation that protects the most fundamental right to vote. A person who has exhibited so much hostility to the enforcement of those laws.
The senator is reminded that it is a violation of Rule 19 of the standing rules of the Senate to impute to another senator or senators any conduct or motive unworthy or becoming a senator.
Mr. President, I don't think I quite understand. I'm reading a letter from Coretta Scott King to the Judiciary Committee from 1986 that was admitted into the record. I'm simply reading what she wrote about what the nomination of Jeff Sessions to be a federal court judge meant and what it would mean in history for her.
Senator Warren was giving a lengthy speech. She had appeared to violate the rule. She was warned. She was given an explanation. Nevertheless, she persisted.
And so she continues to persist. Here she is persisting today in Wisconsin.
If Donald Trump takes the White House, if Republicans get control of Congress, they're coming for abortion everywhere. They're coming for contraception everywhere. They're coming for IVF everywhere. So when we go to the polls on November 5th, you're fighting for Wisconsin by fighting for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
It has been exactly 2 years to the day since the United States Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade and unleashed new abortion bans in 21 states.
I want to thank the 6 justices, Chief Justice John Roberts, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and Neil Gorsuch, incredible people, for having the courage to allow this long-term, hard-fought battle to finally end.
But the battle has not ended and will not end. Republicans want more.
It is absolutely critical as we look at this particular election cycle to remember who it was that put pro-life and conservative judges on the district courts, on the circuit courts, and nominated 3 conservative justices to the United States Supreme Court that after 50 years of fighting, we were able to overturn Roe v. Wade. That president was Donald J. Trump.
Today, the Biden-Harris campaign released this ad.
I was right around 11 weeks when I had a miscarriage. The pain that I was feeling was excruciating. I was turned away from 2 emergency rooms. That was a direct result of Donald Trump overturning Roe v. Wade. He's now a convicted felon. Trump thinks he should not be held accountable for his own criminal actions, but he will let women and doctors be punished. We want to support someone that does have our best interests at heart, and that's why I'm so adamant about supporting President Biden.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Hadley DeVell suffered being raped by her stepfather throughout her childhood. She became pregnant by her stepfather at the age of 12. She wanted an abortion, but had a miscarriage before an abortion was scheduled. She joined the discussion on Morning Joe this morning.
Women today, if they're walking in the shoes that I was in, which was pregnancy from rape, then, you know, they don't have any option in a lot of states, and they're at risk for having no options after the election, you know, and that's, you know, very terrifying. And still, I will forever be that little girl, and, you know, that's really who I do this for, and knowing that I was in that position, and the only thing that allowed me to hold on to hope were the words, "You have options." Those are the first things I heard after I looked at a positive pregnancy test at 12 years old.
And now you're speaking out, because a Trump win would mean what for little girls in the situation you were in?
It would mean the unimaginable. It would mean that they have no options, not even women and girls, but, you know, women with non-viable pregnancies, wanted pregnancies that are non-viable, that are killing these women. They will know that it will be no traveling to another state. It will be no options based on where you live. It will just be one rule for everybody, and that will be no abortions. And that is a very, very dangerous world for women, not only young girls, but all women.
Leading off our discussion tonight is Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, a member of the Senate Finance Committee. She is a Biden-Harris Campaign National Advisory Board Committee member, and she is running for re-election to the United States Senate in Massachusetts. Senator, thank you very much for joining us on this important night. What have we learned in the 2 years since we lost Roe versus Wade?
We have learned that the impact of overturning Roe versus Wade is far bigger than anything anyone imagined at this moment 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, we were talking about what this would mean for women who wouldn't have access to abortion, women who wanted to terminate a pregnancy. But think about the stories we've heard since then. As 10-year-old girls have come forward, 12-year-old girls, 15-year-olds, 30-year-olds who've been raped, as we've heard more from people who have wanted pregnancies but are miscarrying, who have something has gone terribly wrong in that pregnancy, of people who need access to IVF in order to have a family. We're hearing the stories of our sisters, our cousins, our friends, the people we went to school with. Shoot, we're hearing the stories from ourselves about what it means for an extremist group to drive access to abortion, to contraception, to IVF out of the American medical system. We are learning what it means person by person across this country. And I got to tell you, I'm out here in Wisconsin right now, and people are fired up to fight back.
What would it take to legislate Roe versus Wade, pass it as federal legislation and get it signed into law?
Oh, I love this question because we are close. So what it will take is, first and foremost, we've got to have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the White House. If we want to preserve access to abortion, then we've got to have Joe and Kamala. We also need a majority in the United States House of Representatives. We think we're close. We think we can do this, but it means we got to be in that fight. And the third one is we've got to have a majority in the Senate. We've got to have 50 Democrats who are willing to set aside the filibuster and say, your vote matters. We are going to depend on democracy, and we are going to make Roe versus Wade law of the land. Understand this, Lawrence. We are so close. Come November, if we can get those three parts, I think of it as the trifecta, we can make Roe versus Wade law of the land. Not just in blue states, not just in purple states, but all across this nation.
I've observed on this program that if there is another Trump presidency, it seems to me